Welcome to the second episode of Bookshelf Games. Last time I said we were going to start with a lot of small games and kind of work our way up. But we decided to throw that aside and just jump right into one of the biggest games of the year. This week we're going to be doing Marvel Heroes. An excellent game that is very complicated, but it really pays off. It's a great game.
Absolutely wonderful, and for those Marvel fans out there, this is a great game. I recommend you getting it.
There are some great components to this game, and some wonderfully designed components. You're given one board based on the New York City and separated into districts. There are 20 figurines based on Marvel superhero and villains that's wonderfully designed and very detailedly made.
That's right. Each of the figurines is broken into 4 different groups. You have the X-Men with their villain, Magneto. You've got the Marvel Heroes, which is Spider-Man in the group, with, of course, the Kingpin. And then you have the Fantastic Four, really bad movie, but pretty good comic book, with Doctor Doom. And if you look at Doctor Doom for a second, he's really well detailed. He's one of my favorites. Probably my second favorite. We'll get to the first right about now. We'll go over to the Avengers. And if you look at the Incredible Hulk, he's just massive. It's great the way they designed him. He really looks like he just jump off the table and beat the crap out of you. And then you got Captain America and the Red Skull. All around, they did an excellent job in these figures, and we hope to see more figures.
Along with the figurines, you're given Team Power-Up cards and Villain Master Plan cards. These cards are used to power up your superhero teams, and when playing villain, to power up your villain. Here's an example of the power-up cards and the Villain Master Plan cards using the Marvel Knights team and the Kingpin card. Along with each team and villain, there's also a hero template and a villain template in which you represent your heroes and villains. On the board there are several decks of cards in which you use throughout the gameplay. You have your villain cards and your resource cards. Resource cards represent allies that will help your super team throughout the gameplay, while villain cards represents villains that will show up. Story cards emulate story progression throughout the game and helps power up your team. Headline cards represent the crimes in the city that your hero must fight at the district that the cards are located in. Scenario cards is the condition in which you use to win the game. The game also comes with various tokens and 8 combat dice with which to play and keep track of the game. There are 5 symbols on your dice: hit, double hit, hit with possible bonus, trouble, and flat out miss.
Okay, now we'll get into how to set up the board. Start by putting each player's score token on the victory points track. The track will go up to 0 to 25. We're going to use 2-player game as an example for this video because it'll move a little bit quicker. Depending on which scenario you choose, and the instructions say that you can choose them randomly, but we usually go through and pick out the one we want. That's going to determine who wins the game. We'll use this one as an example. It says the first person to 15 points wins. And that's a pretty easy one, and it should work out well. It's also the one the instructions suggest you start with. Come over to the side here. We've also put down turn markers. The game is broken into game rounds, and then those game rounds are broken down to action rounds. There's both 5 game rounds and also 5 action rounds. And we'll go over that a little more later. Next, you lay out the headline deck. And as already explained, these are the cards that will describe the crimes that are currently going on in the city that your heroes will have to defeat in order to progress through the game. You start by shuffling the deck and then laying out usually 6 cards, 1 for each district on the game board. Since we're using a 2-player game example, we leave off the cards for Queens and Brooklyn as they will not be used. You also lay out the story deck and deal out 4 of them. If you look at the cards, you'll notice that each of them is specific to a certain group. We'll also go over this a little bit later. And you also shuffle the resource deck and the villain deck. As explained earlier, the resource deck is going to be allies that assist your hero, and the villain deck is going to be allies to the villain to try and thwart your heroes. In addition to that, you'll see there's some blank spaces at the bottom of the board here. Very convenient to have a resource discard and the villain discard, and also the arch nemesis spots, which we'll go ahead and explain a little bit later also. Now each player sets up their side of the board for their superheroes. You get one rules reference sheet, the 4 character templates, one for each character in your team, and the character sheet for your opponent's nemesis. That's because when your opponent's taking his turn, you're going to be controlling his arch nemesis and trying to stop him from solving crimes and whatnot so that you can solve all the crimes and win the game. If you take a look at the cards, you're going to want to put your hero in the center. This is called recovery. It doesn't necessarily mean your hero is damaged, but just that they're not actively doing anything. And to start the game, that's where they want to be. If you look at the sides of the cards, you have both the ready and the supporting. And this is going to determine what sort of actions your character can take in the game. And once again, that will come a little bit later. In addition to, you get your team's team power-up cards and your opponent's villain's master plan cards. Also, you get your 3 combat tokens. Take a look. You're going to have the team color on the back, and if you turn over the front, you'll see combat icons of different colors. These are going to correspond to the battle values of each of your players. Each player is also dealt 3 cards from the resource deck and 3 cards from the villain deck. This is only for the 2-player version. Usually in games with more players you only get 2, but since we're doing an example of the 2-player version, we'll go ahead and deal out 3. Each game round is broken into 3 different sections: the game round setup, the planning, and the mission. The game round setup is normally skipped during the first round, but we'll go over it here. The first thing you'll do is advance the game round marker. Next, you'll reset the action round marker back to 1. Then, you'll advance the story track. This is done by taking the topmost card and either giving it to a player if they match the symbol on the card, in this case the X-Men get it, and then moving all the other ones up 1 space and drawing a new one. If the symbol does not match any team playing, you simply discard the card. If any of the headline cards were completed during the last round, you'll draw new headline cards to replace them. As we said, we're only playing a 2-player game this time, so you should normally have 4. But I'll go ahead and pull these 2 just to give you an example. And this will determine what sort of crimes are going on for the players in the next coming round. Next, you'll assign the first player token and the arch nemesis token. First player token goes to either randomly decided at first and then gets passed around to the left. The arch nemesis token goes to the player who controls the nemesis of the team with the most points. So for example, if the X-Men had a whole bunch of points way ahead of the rest of the team, then whoever controlled Magneto will get the arch nemesis token. And this is going to let Magneto fight better during the game. Next is the planning phase. This one's a little tricky. It's broken into 4 different parts. First, you receive plot points, assign superhero status, heal, and then you receive allies and power-ups. Plot points are a sort of currency in the game. Every round, you'll get the number of plot points, these little speech blocks, equal to the number of players who are in recovery but not injured. This means if you look at it right now, and as it will be in the start of the game, you receive 4 plot points. However, if Daredevil is injured, he does not receive a plot point, so you only get 3. If Daredevil was fine and you had Elektra out on the board during this part of the game, then you would still only receive 3 because you only have 3 in recovery. Also, a combination of which, if Daredevil is damaged and Elektra's out on the board, then you're only going to get 2. Plot points do not get discarded if you don't use them. You can leave them there and allow them to accumulate. The second part of the planning phase is to assign your superhero status. This will be used to determine what your characters can do during the upcoming round. If you look closely at the card, you can see you have both a ready side and a supporting side. And each of these have special abilities of your superhero. We'll go into those a little bit more later. Also, if you look here, you have a level. This is going to be the cost to use your superhero. During the planning phase, as we said for the first round, you'll receive 4 plot points. Every other round, depending on who you have in your ready positions that are not injured. Since we have 4 points, I'm going to go ahead and say I want to put Spider-Man out to the ready position. If I look here, it says he has a level of 2. That means I need to play 2 plot points to put him in this ready position. I'm also going to go ahead and throw Daredevil in the supporting. Now, he won't actually be able to accomplish as much as Spider-Man during this round, but he'll be able to help Spider-Man solve the crimes. That's really helpful in this game. Now, no matter what the character's level is, if you put them in the supporting, it costs 1 plot point. I'm also going to go ahead and leave this extra plot point for later in the game, because you use plot points for other things besides just assigning heroes. The third step in the planning phase is to heal any heroes that were injured during the last round. It's important to notice, and I'm going to stress this, that you do not receive plot points for heroes that were injured, and you don't heal them until after plot points are assigned. So, currently, if you take a look at the setup, you will only receive 3 plot points because we have Elektra injured here. And if you remember, we had Spider-Man in the ready and Daredevil in a supporting status. This means that since the heal is being taken off now, Elektra cannot be assigned to either the ready or supporting during this phase. The fourth stage of the planning phase is that each player may play 1 ally resource from their card. If you remember, the ally resources represented other characters in the Marvel Universe that can help. One of my personal favorites is the Punisher, so we'll use him for example. We'll throw him out. Now, if you take a look at it, you'll see that he has the Marvel Knight symbol. It costs 1 plot point to play this card. In addition to paying the 1 to play this card, if I had another one, I could play it on top, and this allows me to use the card twice. However, since the Punisher has the Marvel Knight symbol, I pay 1 plot point to get the card on the table, and I get a free plot point on top of it, saying that I can use this card. Also during the power-up phase, I can discard 3 story cards if I've accumulated them during the game to receive one of my team power-up cards. Now these are very powerful during the game. If we take a look at this one here for the Marvel Knights, it's called Enter the Infernal Dimensions. This allows Doctor Strange to now be considered a level 2. Doctor Strange is normally a level 3. Now 3 might sound like it's better than 2, but remember, the only thing level's really doing is determining the cost to get the player out on the board in the ready. So for him to be 2, that's a huge advantage.
Now we move on to the fun part of the game, the mission phase. The mission phase is broken down into 5 different actions. The very first action is your movement action. During the movement phase, you can move a ready hero or a supporting hero, or you may move a ready hero and bring along a supporting hero for free. In this case, I'll be moving Spider-Man from the ready position to East Village. This is so I can solve the headline deck card that is at Lower Manhattan District. The way you determine where the headline card takes place is based on the symbol here. In this case, it's a diamond, which corresponds to East Village's diamond symbol. The next action I'm going to go over is the medical treatment action. Medical treatment action is when you may remove a wound token from your superhero that's currently in recovery. So, let's say Doctor Strange is currently KO'd with 1 wound. I can use this medical treatment action to remove the token.
And this will allow Doctor Strange to be used during the next upkeep, so he'll receive player points for him. Also, during the assignment from ready to supporting on the next turn, Doctor Strange will be available. If he left him wounded, this would not be possible.
During the story action, you draw 1 card from your resource deck. After that, you may either advance the story track, as explained earlier, which pushes off 1 card, and the cards goes to the team that it corresponds to. In this case, since it's not in any team in play, it gets discarded. And then you draw another story card to fill out the track. Or, if you decide not to do that, you may instead rearrange the tracks any way you want, so that in the next story action phase, it may benefit your team when the card is pushed off the board.
Also, if one of the cards that is pushed off the board belongs to your team, you get 1 victory point for that card.
During the mission phase, you may also use the special ability. Keep in mind, you can only use abilities that denotes an action as it's written on the character templates. In this case, we're going to use Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange's supporting action says, Sanctum of the Sorcerer Supreme, move Doctor Strange to recovery to gain 2 plot points and 1 resource cards. Doctor Strange is currently on a supporting spot on the board, and using his action, I place him back into recovery. Notice that Doctor Strange is in the recovery but not injured. That means during the next game round, you may get a plot points for him, and also he may be assigned. Since I use his power, now I get 2 plot points and I draw 1 more resource card. The remaining action in the mission phase is the troubleshooting action. In order to start troubleshoot, I have to first get to an area where there's a headline card. In this case, I'm going to use 1 movement action to move Spider-Man from Ready to East Village, and also bring along his supporting Daredevil to the supporting position.
This only counts as 1 action, because when taking a moving action, if you remember, you can move a ready character and bring along a supporting character for free. The troubleshooting action is divided into 5 parts. First, you determine the trouble level. Next, the heroes get a chance to reduce the trouble level. Then, the opponents of the active character get to play villain cards to try and make it more difficult for the heroes to solve the crime. After that comes combat, and then headline resolution. The first step of troubleshooting is to determine the trouble level. This is done by taking a look at the headline card. The headline card has a lot of important information on it. Up at the top here we have a little backstory on the crime that's taking place. Here we have what types of crimes are going on. Right down here, this is the threat level. The center icon determines which zone inside of a district the trouble is occurring in. And then off here on the right is the victory bonus if your hero is able to successfully complete the crime. To determine the trouble level, we look at the threat level of the card. In this case, it's a 3. That means we take 3 of our dice and we roll them. For every hit, that's going to add 1 to the trouble level. Also, if the result was a trouble, that would also add 1 to the level. So if we look at this current, it's 4. So we move the trouble marker to 4. You'll also see on this die, I rolled a bonus. Now, normally you'll get to re-roll bonuses as many times as bonuses occur to continue increasing the threat. So that brings it up to 5. However, if you take a look at the type of crime that is occurring, it says protection. Now this can match up to your superhero's particular specialties in crime fighting. If we look at Spider-Man, he has science and rescue, and Daredevil has investigation. Neither of these match, so that means bonuses do count when determining the trouble level. However, if we were to have had Storm out here, she has protection, so that means that no bonuses will be re-rolled during determining trouble level. The next step of troubleshooting is the heroes get a chance to reduce the trouble level. This is done by taking a look at the bold word in the middle of the headline card. In this case, it's crime. If you take a look at the character sheet, every character has skill points in danger, crime, and mystery. When reducing the threat level, you look at whatever characters are currently ready or supporting. Whoever has the highest level in the current threat type determines how much is going to be reduced by. In this case, Daredevil has a crime of 3 and Spider-Man has a crime of 2. Even though Daredevil's only supporting and will not actually be fighting, his crime level is higher, so that's how far the threat level will be reduced by. So we take what was already at a threat level of 5 and reduce it to 3.
If the trouble level is reduced to 0 by the hero's attribute, the headline card is automatically solved and the points is given to the team. Since the trouble level is so low, I'm unable to play some really good villains. However, in this case, I have in my hand the Shocker. As you can see on the villain card, there's 2 numbers. The first number is the required threat level in order for me to play this villain. In this case, it's 1. So as long as the threat level, the trouble level is above 1, I can play him. The second number you see is the cost to play this villain. The cost is deducted from the trouble level as you play. In this case, it's 0, so I don't have to reduce the trouble level. In addition to playing this villain card, I can play more villain cards in order to support my main villain. In this case, I'll be playing the wizard. When you're playing supporting villains, you do not use the cost or the threat level on the top. Instead, you use, on the bottom of the villain card, you see the villain's supporting ability and the cost on the side. In this case, 1. So I'll be reducing the trouble level by 1 and playing the card, wizard card, underneath my main villain so that you can read the supporting ability. I can play as many villain cards as I have in my hand in the supporting row as long as there's enough threat points available for me to place them down.
After the opposing players have played the villain cards and all the supporting cards for that, then combat ensues. Combat's pretty difficult, so we're going to go over that a little bit later. We can focus more on it and just continue with troubleshooting at this point, because there's still a few details we have to go over. If the villain wins, then the superhero is taken off of the board and immediately placed into recovery with 1 wound token put on him. Now, to remove that wound token, the player is going to either have to spend an action healing him, or else he won't be able to receive plot points for him or use him in the next game round. Also, the headline card is discarded, as is the villain card and any supporting cards there. However, if you have a more powerful villain card than the Shocker, Shocker's not that great, so he just gets discarded. But if you were to have a more powerful card, like Sabretooth, he has a special icon up here above his cost, this little triangle. This means that if he beats the heroes, he does not get discarded. Instead, he comes down here at the bottom and is placed in the most wanted villain section. This way, during next rounds when the heroes are troubleshooting, any opposing player of the heroes may use this card down here instead of playing a card out of their hand. However, if the hero wins, then the villain and any of his bonuses are discarded, and any damage that the hero might have incurred would be removed. We'll go over that a little more during combat. Also, the heroes receive the bonus listed on the card. So in this case, it says 2 victory points. So we go up to the victory point track and move the Marvel Heroes points to 2.
Now let me go over a really fun but complicated part of the game, arch-villains. If the headline card that is being troubleshooted has a special symbol on its trouble level, the lightning symbol, the player controlling the arch-villain of the hero team gets to make some plays. As the opposing player controlling the arch-villain, I can either take a scheming action or a master plan. Let me explain the scheming action. I can choose one of the 3 options of scheming action. 1, I can increase the threat level. For this example, we have placed the threat level back to 5. If you look at the villain's character template, you see that he has the appropriate danger, crime, and mystery level also. In this case, the headline card being troubleshooted is the crime card. So I can increase, being that Kingpin has a crime level of 2, I can increase the trouble level by 2. So, increasing it up to 7. Instead of increasing the trouble level, I can also draw additional villain cards based on the highest level of the ready heroes in the district. In this case, the ready hero is Spider-Man, who is level 2. That means I get to draw 2 additional villain cards. The third scheming action I may perform is to boost the lead villain's combat dice. Using the previous villain example of Shocker, by combat boosting, I mean any combat rolls that the villain rolls with a bonus marker on there, they may reroll again for extra damage. Now let me go over the master plans. If you remember right, the archvillain are given 3 master cards in the very beginning: Prologue, Development, and Conclusion. These cards are used to power up the archvillains. To start the master plan, you place the master plan cards on top of the headline cards that the heroes are attempting to troubleshoot. The troubleshooting phase then go on to proceed as normal. If the hero is defeated, the master plan is automatically successful. If the hero defeats the villains, they have the option then to challenge the archvillain or not. If they do not challenge the archvillain, the master plan is also successful, and the archvillain gets the new power-up. If the player decides to challenge the mastermind plan and go against the archvillain, then combat proceeds against the archvillain in question. If the heroes are defeated, the master plan is considered successful, and the new archvillain gets a power-up. If the heroes succeed in defeating their arch-nemesis, the master plan is thwarted. And on our future archvillain fights, the master plan may be attempted again. The winning player that challenged the archvillain can also bring one of their team power-up cards into play. Let me explain the arch-nemesis. The arch-nemesis token is taken at the start of the game round by the player controlling the nemesis of the team with the most victory points. As an arch-nemesis who holds the token, they may attempt a scheming action or attempt a master plan when his opposing player is trying to solve any headline instead of a master headline.
Okay, now finally we're going to go over combat. This is really the center part of the game, and this is the best part of the game. They came up with a really good system for this. To begin, we'll have to take a close look at the cards. We'll continue with the example where Spider-Man is in the ready. And in this case, we're going to bring out a better villain than the Shocker. We'll use Venom. If we look at the top of Spider-Man's cards, he has 3 different colors. These colors represent different special abilities he has. Spider-Man has Super Strength, Wall Crawler, and Web Slinger. If you look even closer at these different colors, you'll see an icon of a fist with a number next to it, a chest plate with a number next to it, and a brain with a number next to it. This is because combat is broken into several different rounds, which I'll get into in a minute. The higher number is going to determine how many dice are rolled during each of these rounds. The villain card also has these 3 different colors. In Venom's case, he has Aggression, Regeneration Polymers, and Alien Spider Sense. If we look at the villain card, he has a KO count of 2. This means he can get damaged twice before he's defeated. Spider-Man also has a KO count of 2, which also means he can be injured twice before being defeated. Since Spider-Man is in the ready, that means during this combat, he's able to use his special power in the ready section. Spider-Man's power is he may discard a resource card. That means one of the resource cards that are the ally cards in your hand to subtract 2 hits from the opponent during the combat result. We'll go over that in a second. Venom's special power is right here, the Mind Cry. Discard 1 villain card. Remember, each player also has villain cards in their hand. So you may discard these villain cards to use this special ability. If you look at the villain card, down here, John had already mentioned what this block is for. This is if you're not going to use the card as the main villain, however use it to support another one. Since Venom's going to be the main character during this fight, we will not even pay attention to this card, or this section of the card. We also have out here the Punisher. He's being used as an active resource card. If you remember, during setup, you were able to play resource cards at the beginning of the game round. That means we paid 1 plot point to bring the Punisher out. And since he currently does not have any plot points on him, we are allowed to discard him to use his special ability. His special ability is Veteran Sniper. It says we can activate it to use the allies' rating during the next combat phase, and his combat is 4. In addition to all of that, we still have Daredevil off to the side here in support. Now Daredevil is going to enable Spider-Man to use dice boosting. So whenever Spider-Man rolls a die, if he lands on a die with a hit and a bonus, the hit counts, he gets to re-roll the die, and if it lands on another hit or 2 hits like it just did, you get to add those to your total number of hits. You may also use the supporting character's special ability if it deals with combat. To keep it simple, we're using Daredevil, who does not have a combat one. However, if we were to have somebody like Elektra in here right now, she does have a combat ability, and this would allow us to discard a card to add 1 hit to our next attack roll. The combat phase is broken into 4 different sequences. First, each player chooses the powers they're going to use. Next, the character with the initiative attacks, and the opponent defends. After that, the character without the initiative this turn attacks, and the opponent defends. After that, there's an outwit contest. In choosing powers, you're going to look at your character's different colored skills here, and you're going to determine which one you want to use. This is kind of a paper, scissors, rock type mechanic, but it works really well. You'll take your different markers that you have, and you have the 3 different icons on here. Without your opponent seeing, you'll choose which one you want to use. I'll go ahead and pick the Super Strength for this one.
As the opposing player controlling the main villain, I secretly chose Regenerating Polymers for this attack.
And that's a good idea for him, because if you look at it, he's got a higher defense. Now, one thing I didn't mention yet is, the hero always starts with the initiative. That means he gets to attack first while the supervillain needs to defend. Since John knows he's going to be defending, he's going to want to pick a skill with a higher defense, so he can survive at least the first round of combat. So for my attack, I'm going to roll 4 dice, which is equal to my superhuman strength attack value. Now, if we look at this, I had 4 hits, a trouble marker, and one of my hits had a boost icon. The trouble marker is just pretty much an automatic miss. That's only good for the troubleshooting. The combat, these 3 will count, and this 4th one will also count. However, the dice boosting only counts if you have a supporting character. In this scenario, we're using Daredevil as a supporting character. So this means I get to re-roll the dice while still remembering that I have 1 more hit. So I have a total of 4, and I get to re-roll, and that's another miss. So that leaves me with a total of 4. Then John would get to go ahead and roll the defense for the orange skill of Regenerating Polymers that he had chosen. Since he has a defense of 4, that means he gets to roll 4 dice. Okay, so for John's defense, he rolled 1. He was able to roll 4 dice again because he's got the defense of 4. Since mine is higher than his 1, I score a KO against John. He puts a KO marker here. Now notice, Venom again has a KO of 2, so that means I have to impact damage to him twice before he's defeated. Now, it's John's turn to attack. He's still using that orange Regenerating Polymers. So, while he chose a good skill with 4, he's now only able to attack with 3 die. John has rolled 2 hits and trouble, which is pretty much nothing. Again, it has boosting, but since right now we're not going over an arch nemesis scenario, he does not have dice boosting. So this means he has a total of 2 hits. I now get to roll my 1 defense. Okay, now I came back and got 2 here also. Since this is tied, there is no damage done. The attacker needs to up the other person's defense roll by at least 1. So this part ends in a draw. The final phase of this combat round is the initiative. This means both players will roll equal to their initiative, or the little brain icon here. They'll roll the number of dice, and whoever has the most will inflict a point of damage. Also, whoever wins this round gains the initiative and gets to attack first during the next combat round. So I have an initiative of 3, so I will roll 3 dice.
I have an initiative of 2, so I roll 2 dice.
John has 2. He does not have dice boosting since this is not an arch nemesis fight. This gets discarded for me. I have 2, but since I paid to have Daredevil out here, I get to re-roll this dice. That lands me with another, leading to 3. That means I win, I get to keep initiative the next round, and John gets another KO. Since John's character now has 2 KOs, that means he's lost this battle. Now that battle ended a little bit quicker than they usually do. So I'm going to bring Venom back out here just to prove a couple points. If, when I had chosen a special ability to use, I decided to use my web crawling, which has a low attack but a high defense, I could have chosen to discard my Punisher card to use his attack. That's 4. That means I would be able to roll 4 dice on my attack and then still have the 4 dice on the defense. Also, what would have happened if this would have gone longer is, we're allowed to take our icons back at the end of each combat phase, and then each player chooses the next special power they're going to use. This will usually be determined by whether you have the initiative or not. Also, if this combat had not ended so quickly, we would have had the opportunity to take our special power tokens back and chosen another special power during the next combat round. We'll base this off of strategy and what kind of ally cards we have out to see what kind of bonuses we'll get to each of these. And this adds a really nice element of strategy to the game. Now we're going to have a real quick example round. We're only going to use 1 player for this round, just to speed things up. We already have the board laid out like it should be. In this scenario, we're going to use the X-Men. So we take the X-Men scoring token, put it on 0 of the scoring track. We've already got all the crimes laid out, scenario up here, story arc laid out, and we've got both the resource deck and the villain deck. Okay, again, we're going to simulate the first round of the game. So our game round marker is on 1, and our action round is on 1. Since this is the first round, all of our characters are uninjured in recovery. That means we get to start with 4 plot points. Also, I'll get to start with 3 resource cards and 3 villain cards. This brings us to the planning phase. For this planning phase, I'm going to spend 2 tokens, 2 plot point tokens, to make Wolverine an active character and put him in the ready. I'm also going to spend 1 token to make Jean Grey a supporting character, and I'll put her into supporting. I'll then spend my last plot point to bring out Nightcrawler as an active resource card. Since he's an X-Man, I get to spend the 1 plot point that I used to buy the card and put it right back on the card. This allows me to use the card twice before it's discarded. This brings us to the mission phase. As my first action, I'm going to move Wolverine up here to Hell's Kitchen. I'm also going to bring along Jean Grey's supporting character, and I can do that in 1 action because, again, Wolverine was ready, Jean Grey was supporting, and I got to bring a free supporting character with me. For my second action, I'm going to take a story action. This allows me to take the X-Men card and advance all the other ones up 1 and draw another one. Since I took one of my own cards from the story arc, this allows me to move my points up to 1, and I also get a resource card. For my next action, I'll take a troubleshooting action. Since I move Wolverine to Hell's Kitchen, he can try and troubleshoot the crime occurring there. In this case, mutant monsters in the city sewers. This has a mystery and a fight with a threat value of 3. So the first thing we do is roll 3 dice to determine the threat level. In this case, it is 3. Now I get an opportunity to reduce the threat level. Since I have both Wolverine and Jean Grey in Hell's Kitchen, I will look at their cards and see who has the highest mystery level. Jean Grey has a mystery level of 3. That means right off the bat I reduce the threat level to 0, and I automatically succeed in this troubleshooting. So I will discard the threat card, and I will receive 2 points. For my next action, I'm going to move Wolverine to the financial district, and again bring Jean Grey with me because she's a supporting character and she can come for free. This will end that round, and I'll advance the round token to 4 now. This leaves me with 1 more action. And usually my opponent would be taking actions in between each of mine, but we're just doing this for time. And since now I'm in the financial district, I'll try and troubleshoot this one. The scientists warn of possible tidal wave. Now this one is a much more dangerous mission than the last one, with a potential threat level of 6. That means I take 6 dice and roll them. Right off the bat I've got 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. And plus there's a boosting there. Now boostings are always re-rolled when determining threat level. So I re-roll that, and that's a miss. That leaves me with 6. Now again, I get the opportunity to reduce the threat level. If I take a look at the danger, Jean Grey is the only one with any attributes in danger, and she has a 1. So that reduces it to 5.
As an opposing player with a trouble level of 5, I have a lot of options in my hand. In this case, I'm going to play Sabretooth because he has a requirement of 4 and a spend of 2. So, I spend 2 trouble points to bring out Sabretooth. I'm also going to bring out Green Goblin to play his support activity, which costs me a trouble level of 1. And I place a card underneath Sabretooth to show, with the support ability showing, to show that he's supporting Sabretooth.
Now we each determine which special powers we use. Since I have the initiative, I'm going to choose to use his Adamantium Claws first, because it has a high attack, okay defense, and not a very high initiative. I'm hoping to wipe him out in one round.
As you can see, Sabretooth has only 2 abilities. So, for this case, I'll choose Orange to use Sabretooth's Healing Factor with a defense of 5.
And that brings us to combat. With my Adamantium Claws, I get to roll 5 combat dice. Again, the threat levels don't count in this, so that gives me an attack of 4.
With my Healing Factor, I also get to roll a defense die of 5 against his hits of 4. And I get total of 4 hits. In this case, since this is not a arch-villain troubleshooting, my master villain does not get dice boosting, so my total is 4, canceling out his 4. There is no damage dealt in this round.
Next, Yen gets a chance to attack with Sabretooth. At this point, the powers are still set, so he still has to attack with his orange, which was Healing Factor. That means he only gets to attack with 2 dice, while with my Adamantium Claws, I get to defend with 3.
Rolling my 2 dice of attack, I get an attack of 2. Remember, this is not an arch-villain action, so die boosting does not count.
Now rolling my 3 defense, I end up with 2. However, I do have Jean Grey in supporting, so my dice boosting does count. So now I have 2 hits, get a reroll, gives me 2 more for a total of 4. This means, again, that since my defense is higher than his offense, he does not score any hits against me. Also, since I'm defending, I don't get to score any hits against him. So, no damage is done. Now we roll our initiatives. With my Adamantium Claws, I only have an initiative die roll of 1. However, I have my Nightcrawler here. And I'm going to go ahead and use this special ability. Since I have the plot point here, I only discard the plot point. And this allows me to roll this ally's initiative, which is a 5. So that's a very powerful card. So I roll my 5 dice. And I end up with 5.
With Sabretooth, his initiative value of Healing Factor is only 1 die. So I roll 1 die with 1 hit, which is no match against his 5.
Since I rolled a 5 and John rolled a 1, we place a KO marker on his nemesis. That means he's taken 1 damage point. Since Sabretooth can sustain 2, he's still in the fight. However, since I won this initiative round, that also means I get the chance to attack first during the next round.
We take back our combat token in preparation for next round.
Now we repeat the combat. Since I still have the initiative, I'm again going to use my Adamantium Claw. That's because it has an attack of 5, a defense of 3, which is still pretty good, and a very low initiative. But since I still have my Nightcrawler card out here, he can cover my initiative. This allows me to roll 5 dice. That gives me a total damage to John of 4.
I'm gonna be using my claw to give me, which gives me actually a defense value of 1. But in this case, I'm going to use my support villain's special ability, which is protected. It says discard this card to use a rating of 4 on my next defense roll. So I discard my support card and I get 4 dice for my defense. I roll a total of 3, which unfortunately does not give me enough to counteract his 4. So Sabretooth takes another damage and then is therefore defeated and out of the game.
Since Sabretooth is defeated, his card gets discarded, and I get to resolve this troubleshooting. Now this gives me 5 victory points, moving my total up to 8. That also marked the last action round, meaning this game round is over. Now at the beginning of the next round, the first thing we do is reset the action round and advance the game round marker. Next, we advance the story track. So this one comes off and goes to whoever player owns it. Since this is the Avengers, and right now we're only using the X-Men as an example, it simply gets discarded. Everything else moves up 1, and the next card gets brought down. Next, we replace the headline cards that were used during the last round. Then, whoever had the first player token passes it to the person on their left. After that, we go into the planning phase. Now this is the tricky part of the game. You only receive plot points for the number of characters who are in the recovery area but not injured. Since both Wolverine and Jean Grey are still out on the board, that means I only get 2 plot points. Now if we were playing an actual game, I wouldn't let that happen because that's not a very good strategy. At the beginning of the game, you're going to want to accumulate plot points. Next, I get to assign my plot points. Now since Wolverine and Jean Grey are still out on the board, I need to pay to keep them out there. So I would have to pay 2 to keep Wolverine out here in the district and 1 out here to keep Jean Grey there. Since I don't have that much, I'm going to pull Jean Grey back and leave Wolverine out here, getting rid of my plot points. Next, if I had any damaged superheroes, they would heal. After that, I would get a chance to play any of the ally cards I might still have in my hand. Since I don't have any plot points though, I'm not able to play any this round.
Remember, you have 5 action rounds to do any action that you wish. So plan your strategy accordingly and win this game. So that brings us to the conclusion of this video. This is a complicated but fun game, and we hope our video were able to clarify some of the rules.
Yeah, we did this mostly as a demonstration. This is a very intricate game, and there's definitely some rules I think that might have been a little hazy there, but I think we really got the nitty-gritty of the game. You should be able to watch this video and jump right into it, hopefully. Again, that's why we have the corrections page on our website, is for those little rules that I know everyone's going to find, and hopefully people will email me right away so we can get them up there. But as far as a review of this game, this is a great game. It's been widely anticipated across the geek, and everyone's been waiting for it, and they've really come through on this one. I mean, game components alone, and then the gameplay is great. I really enjoyed this game, and it was a great buy. How about you, John?
Definitely. I enjoy it. As a great Marvel fan, this is something I'm glad that I own.
Definitely. A definite must for any comic book fan. Well, thanks for joining us this week. Hope to see you next time. Oh, it wasn't recording.
Yeah, I was
Just kidding.